Okay, so hi everybody. If you don't know me yet, I'm Shayla. So I'm head of business generation here at Ubiminds. For the last 5 years, we've been helping, companies in North America to find really good product design engineering experts in Latin America. If it's for your first time here, every Thursday we have Ubitalks, which is basically where we're discussing different topics on technology, people how to develop technology, and anything in between, right? Today I have a very special guest, so Dani Silva. She's our talent acquisition lead. She's, a lead recruiter. She's one person on the ground that's always, able to tell us about, candidates' expectations, how to make a company really sexy for an engineer that you're looking to hire so you don't miss them for the competition. Dani, introduce yourself.
Yeah, as Sheila well said, I'm a tech recruiter lead here at Ubiminds. So that means that I'm working really closely with the team and also with the candidates. I'm excited to share a little bit about what they're looking for. One thing that I can say right off the bat is that the companies are being interviewed by the candidates as much as they're interviewing. So it's really important to think about how you're setting yourself apart from other companies, how you're offering the best opportunity for these product-driven, mission-aligned contributors. They really want to have impactful jobs. They want to work with impactful products, as much as they want career growth. And so it's really important to show them what you have in your company. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about that.
Yay. Yeah, I think one thing that's good to just make really clear that when we're talking about talent and hiring in LatAm, we're not just talking about bringing costs down. It's about finding candidates or talent that maybe, it's a very high quality and that it's hard to find anywhere, right? So if you're looking for these people, they're already in this global arena. So you're not competing with them just with the local companies. You're also competing with them with other companies in Europe or North America or whatever. So you really have to be attractive. It's not just about the money anymore. It's a lot about the challenge, the company culture, and so on. So we're going to dig in. So Dani, just to begin, right? A lot of companies, even with the current status, right, where we're having a little bit of layoffs and still another situations, and some companies are a little bit skeptical. We understand that, they are still approaching us. They still want to look across the equator, expand their options, looking at other talent pools, other price ranges, other skill sets, even because, these people are coming from different school systems, have interesting mindsets there. So what are they looking for? Is it, attractive for these candidates to work for an American company instead of a Brazilian or Argentinian one? What are they looking for?
For sure. So yeah, we're talking a lot, especially about senior people that already have a very solid career here in Brazil or in their home country. So they're ready to start working with different cultures, different mindsets. So this is one thing, right? We talk to a lot of candidates, like I said, very senior people that have solid careers here, and they want to have an international career. They want to have, exposure to a different culture. They want to learn from different people that have a different tech mindset. We know that, of course, there's a lot of advances in Brazil when it comes to technology, but usually companies from abroad, especially US, they're a few steps ahead when it comes to technologies, to tools that are used, to methodologies, modern practices. So they really want to, these tech professionals, they really want to be exposed to that. They want to learn more, they want to contribute more, be that, so that they can continue working for international companies, or so that they can bring this knowledge to, back to where they're from, right?
Okay, so if you're a foreign company and you're joining a team, in Argentina, Colombia, or Brazil, you can use that as an asset. Like, you can flaunt that you're a foreign team. That is something that's beneficial.
Yes, for sure, for sure. Yeah, it's so important I think for not only the candidates, but also for the companies as well, because they will have access to somebody different that comes with a different knowledge, a different mindset, a different thinking and a way of being taught technology that will for sure add into the development. So that is only beneficial for both sides. And obviously even the little things, right? The language, the culture. So the candidates really want that. They want to practice their English. They want to have exposure to people that are going to have different accents, different vocabularies. And so that will for sure add to their career and their knowledge in general.
Okay, I guess that makes sense because, if they are already in a Latin American company, I'm guessing that if they were still working in a multinational setting, they might speak English 1 or 2 hours a day, whereas where they're placed in a company, a US company, they might be talking English 6 to 8 hours a day or something like that. So I'm guessing that is something they look for.
Yes, it's so different when you learn English, like either in school or some extra courses, or you travel here and there, or you play games. A lot of our candidates, so when we ask them about, hey, how did you learn English? And they say, oh, I played a lot of video games and I learned like that. But it's so different than speaking to native speakers or to people from across the world that they have different vocabulary. There we go. Hugo is one of them that he learned through games, but he rocks with the English. But it's so different than using it every day on your vocabulary and having also that tech vocabulary, right? Because you know how to say like day-to-day things. You can really talk to somebody, but then it's different when you have to add that tech vocab. So it's so good for them to be immersed in that environment.
Yeah, and my guess here, they're talking to leaders, they're interviewing users, they're talking to product engineering, marketing teams. So they're really expanding their business acumen and also their business English, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, and when we're talking about, the kind of positions they're looking for, what makes a specific job attractive to them? Do you see a difference whether it's like a short-term position or whether it's a product company or a project-based role? How do you envision that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So project-based means a limited time partnership, right? So even though they're going to be exposed to more technologies, say that they're going to be working 6 months on one full JavaScript project, but another time they're going to have like a different maybe framework that they're going to be exposed. So that gives them some kind of variety, but it may limit a little bit of their business knowledge, right? So product based means that they're going to have a higher sense of belonging. They can do more big picture thinking. It's a longer term investment. They're going to feel more like owners. They'll be able to collaborate more with the team. So Ubiminds, we work more with product based, right? So our clients, they're looking for a long-term commitment. They want somebody that is going to come in and invest some time to get to know the business, get to know the product. They're going to talk to different people in the company. They're going to learn, what the user is thinking, how they can deliver the best product for that end user. And I think that's only a big advantage for the companies, right? They're having people that are investing time to grow, to learn. They're going to think about the best experience ever and deliver that. There's a lot of people that are also interested in working for projects, and there's a lot of advantages in that, like I said, but product-based, is really what we focus on. And we see a lot of candidates looking for that. Hey, I'm used to working, more project, but I'm looking for a long-term commitment so I can be, more part of it, feel like I'm owner of the product and have more time to really invest on good deliveries.
Okay, so my guess here, and also based on what I've spoken to some, when I'm prospecting even, right? A company that's very early stage and they might be, still working on the proof of concept, or they want like an MVP version of their app. Maybe it's not time for them to grow their team yet, and definitely not look abroad yet. Like normally they would maybe have a software house that would develop the first version. And once they know they have the answers of, all their hypotheses and so on, then it's time to bring in an in-house team. And then it might be interesting to have, looking to other countries, because again, that expands your talent pool when you might find someone with a similar skill set of what you're looking for.
Yeah,
But
that is for sure a good option, and we do have some clients of ours that we've helped them scale the business, the product. But we also do have one that started with us even before they launched the product, and our Ubiminder helped them from the very beginning, the MVP, the conception of the product. So I mean, most of the times we're helping bigger companies that already have a solid product that they want to continue growing. But yeah, we have cases where we've helped them from the ground up.
okay, so it might not be so much the phase of what stage the company is, but very much of what kind of culture it's looking to set up. Like, okay, am I going to look for career-driven people that are going to have long-term engagement and grow with my product? Or is it like a very short-term, very small need sort of thing? Does that make sense?
Definitely the growing mentality, because working on an MVP is very exciting. You get to be part of all the decisions, you get to deliver something from the very beginning, so that's for sure very exciting. I think it's more like the goal. I want to scale my product, I want to deliver something that's high quality, I want somebody to really be invested in my product. So that's really what people are looking for, the candidates. They really want to deliver that. They really want to do that.
Okay, so I'm guessing that if they're looking ahead and they're looking at, because they're committing their time, right, and their career into that, if they're going to talk about being 2 years, 3 years into a company. So my guess is, just like companies do background checks on candidates, chances are they're going to do background checks on the companies as well, right? Does reputation come into play? Should I be concerned about how my company is being perceived?
Yeah. So for sure, that is one of the things that we have to be very mindful of. And we have asked, answered questions about candidates that say, hey, I took a look at Glassdoor, and I Googled this company and there's this or that. So that is definitely a very good point. So in Ubiminds in general, we look forward to working with companies that have very similar cultural values than ours, and these values go a long way. So say that you had some problems in the past and there is some kind of reviews that's a bit concerning. So you should definitely think about how you're communicating those changes to candidates. If they're Googling you and they're seeing something that's a bit concerning, it's important that you address those questions. Hey, we know this, but we've had, say, a change of leadership recently, and, we're working on these, or, there's an investment, we're hiring, we're scaling, and we want to invest on improving on this point. So they're sure researching you, they're looking into what you can offer them. So it's really important to address that for sure.
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple of ways that the team can pair up, right? So I'm guessing here we can have a CTO can very easily come up to a marketing team and the HR team, say like, hey, what do we have in terms of employer branding that I can use? We have a solid career page. Should we be doing PR? That's a little bit more, talent focused and so on. So yeah, I'm gonna be very upfront for anybody that's looking to partner up with Ubiminds. That is actually one of the qualification criteria for me when I'm working with leads. So I am looking, of course, just like any other salesperson, like, okay, does the time frame match? Does the budget match? But this idea of offering a meaningful job to engineers means that we have to be sure that we're placing them in companies and teams that are going to be very mindful, or they're going to be very inclusive. They're going to be working in terms of technical development, software, not just software, but also the soft skills, right? They're going to be looking to really treat this engineer that joins them just like one of their own, and they're going to give them this experience. So that's, again, you're going to want to have a solid reputation, but you also want to have a really positive experience, so they keep on building on this positive, right? You need ambassadors, you do need promoters, you need people that are willing to give their testimonials and say that, hey, it really is great to work under this person and in this project and in that product.
Yeah, and I even it's so interesting because I was recently talking to one of our Ubiminders, and he said, "Hey, Dani, I had a really good impression about the company, about Ubiminds when I was interviewing, but now that I've joined, it's even more positive. I'm so happy, and everything that you guys shared, it's really not just talk. It's I'm really living this. So if you have people that are, like you said, Sheila, ambassadors, they're giving testimonials, they're putting on reviews on Glassdoor, on other tools, they're recording videos, your marketing team is investing on that, and you're really showcasing how you're great to candidates, it's going to be that much easier to get them engaged, interested in you, and really moving forward in your process, right? So that goes a long way, especially in this very competitive tech market that we're talking about.
Okay, and I'm guessing this impacts also the recruitment process, right? So let's say a first time a candidate is in touch with a hiring manager, the hiring manager has to know how to pitch. Like, I have to pitch and make sure that this the company is really attractive, the product is attractive. Could you tell me a little bit more of like what kind of tips we can give to have this like very straightforward recruitment process where expectations are fully aligned and nobody gets frustrated down the line?
Yeah, for sure. So one thing to keep in mind is that when you're doing a recruiting process, you're getting to know that candidate and how they're going to be when they're hired by your company. So if they're really communicating with the team during the recruiting process, that's probably how they're going to be once they're hired, right? The same thing goes the other way around, right? So if the company is having a really long process, bureaucratic, there is a lot of going back and forth, that's probably the impression that you're going to give the candidate that the company is going to be like once they are hired. And in that sense, trying to keep the recruiting process as lean as possible, as straightforward as possible, that's a big help. Even side note, we have one of our last Ubitalks where we had Alberto give some tips on that, and there was a couple of really great tips that he gave, so definitely everybody go check it out. But having that very as lean as possible process is really great. Transparent, right? It's a give and take. The candidate is interviewing the company, so make sure that you're open, you're setting expectations, you're really asking for what's fair, and you're providing what's fair as well. So I think those are some of the things that come to the top of my mind to start. But
yeah, and just to add to that, like, since we're talking specifically about from hiring in LatAm, right? Be mindful that this person is already, interview processes are, they are nerve-wracking. You're being assessed, and in 15 minutes to 1 hour you have to say things that sum up 10 years of your career, right? Be mindful that the person is nervous, but they're also nervous in another language. So they do need a little bit more of a thought process to give the answer, and sometimes it's not the technical part that they're not aware of, or don't know how to answer. Sometimes it's one word that you can't recall, and that makes you a little bit more nervous, and that kind of gets you stuck a little bit on the answer. So sometimes it's interesting to be mindful of that.
Yeah, for sure. I always say this to candidates that I do some kind of prep with, and I tell them, hey, do a little bit of your pitch, just work on that, have some buzzwords ready, have some bullet points, prepare for what is not going to change. You're going to have to talk about your experience, you're going to have to talk about technology, so get that ready, and then you have to worry about only whatever questions come as a follow-up. And they get nervous. It's inevitable, right? It's like you said, you're not only on an interview, which is already nerve-wracking, but you're also speaking on another language. So for sure, being mindful of that. And I have one of my my recent hiring managers that gave me a feedback about a candidate, and he said, hey, I start my interviews just very relaxed, and I tell them, hey, this is a conversation, the goal is for us to get to know each other, and I start with a joke or with something more light so that I can get them into that mentality. And the candidate kind of goes, oh, okay, I can be myself, I can give my very, very best. So I think that is very helpful.
Yeah, and that's really good, because if we're talking about just linguistics, like English is a very objective language. It's like shorter sentences and so on. And when they're looking at Spanish, for instance, You have longer sentences and the thought process is slightly different. So for someone
Yeah.
that's interviewing someone that has Spanish or Portuguese as a first language, it might be something that you have to be ready for, because this is an interview. It's not going to be like that on the day-to-day. And of course, once the person's on the team, the more you're working together, the more aligned they'll be. But it's always nice, like, just so you don't miss out on somebody really good because you're assessing the wrong criteria.
For sure. And another thing that I would say, like from a interviewer standpoint, is that the candidate will be there and they'll be pitching themselves to you. They're going to share their experience. They want that job. But also it goes a long way if you're also telling them what's in it for them, right? So if you're, like I said, this hiring manager that starts the conversation, sets expectations. Hey, this is going to be a conversation. I'm going to tell you this, and that. So, hey, here's the pitch on the company. Here's the pitch on this position. This is what you're going to be doing. But then also, this is what's in it for you. This is what you're going to be gaining. This is how you're going to collaborate and grow in your career as well. This is how, the why and how you can really be impactful for the business. So that's another, if I can think of anything else for the managers, for the interviewers, that's something really important.
And that's something really interesting, right? Because whenever you're a hiring manager and you're a candidate, you already have a kind of power imbalance, like in the traditional recruiting process, right? When you're doing this with international teams, and we're talking, teams in Latin America, just like in Asia and so on, we're very used to being the service provider, and we're having, like, depending on the companies, you're kind of exploited in a sense, right? So candidates do come with this kind of experience, and they're sometimes not comfortable in bringing things forward. They're used to being a little bit more fast. You have clearer orders and so on. So it's very important, if you're not this kind of company, if you do want to treat them as an equal employee, make sure that you make it clear that there's an even playing field, right? And that the candidate's going to be treated just like a full-time employee, and that the company wants to solve this power imbalance and treat them and really welcome them. Actually, then maybe you can add to that, like, how can we do this? How can we level the playing field between, the candidate and the company, and make sure that they're talking on equal terms?
Yeah. In that sense, going back to the product-based, I think that you can make it clear for the candidate that they're going to be what they're going to be part of, right? So they're going to be part of the discussions. They're going to be part of the decisions. They're going to be working with a team. Hey, even though, we know that there's, especially if you're working as a contractor with an intermediary company, there is a bit of a difference here. But, if they're going to be part of the same building and experience as your full-time employees, as the leaders in the company. And if we're talking more like interview process, value their time, treat them as people, not just, a candidate here that I'm going to interview. Be that not taking too long on their interview, or to give an answer, a feedback back to them, not canceling appointments with them. So that is really important. And, if they're not a good match, they might be in the future. So provide them with a nice and constructive feedback that they can apply and grow in their career. So I think those are, definitely make a good experience for the candidates.
That's a really good advice, because when we're talking about, these first contacts, it's about trust building, right? So you want to make sure that you're bringing in someone that you can trust, and they want to make sure that they're going to direct their career into a company that's going to, make sense for them at professional and at that personal level. And it's always really good to be mindful of how competitive this market is, right? So when we're talking about top talent, they're being approached by 3-4 different companies every day. They might be going through 2 different processes in parallel. So it is good, like, the better the chemistry they have with a company, right, the bigger is the chance that they're going to stay there and not accept a counter offer from the current employer, or not shift towards another company there.
It's like I said, the interview process sets the tone, and that's for both the candidates and the company. So the way that the candidates are going to be treated during the interview process is how they're going to see it through the time of partnership, and vice versa. So that's, so important.
Okay, and then so let's say like, okay, I like this person, I'm bringing them into the team, and I'm probably gonna spend a couple of months kind of measuring them up and making sure that they really are a good match and they've made a good choice. What should companies be aware of, like, of the ongoing relationship? How do I make sure that these candidates that come in from another culture, they're well, they join the team and they're productive and they're happy, and the team is also really welcoming and really excited about what's going on.
Yeah. Sure. I would say first, you can really deliver what you don't know or what you don't have a clear understanding of. So, well set expectations is really important. They need to know from the very beginning on the process what is going to be expected of them, what kind of skills they need, what they're going to be doing, if they need any kind of extra skill set. And when they start with a company, that needs to be continually aligned, double checked, and conversation needs to happen constantly, so everybody's clear of the scope, the growing opportunities, how they're going to be successful, what is expected of them. I think that's one very important point. And in that line, you need to invest time also giving them feedback, investing on their career growth, right? Especially when we're talking about more senior developers, but this goes to all seniority, obviously. People want to grow. They want to know what they're doing right, but they also, and especially want to do what they're doing wrong, and how they can do better. So I think investing that time in feedbacks, in career growth, is what is going to make sure that this starts as a good opportunity, but continues being a good opportunity in the long run.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so we've come up for almost half an hour here, okay, on the dot. If anybody has questions, you can go ahead and send it in the chat. I actually have some that I received through email before. So I'm going to start with one that's already kind of complicated, but let's go. Do I risk co-employment? Okay, so this is very interesting. When you're looking to hire in Latin America, you have different options, right? You have direct hire. You can use a platform, let's say like a gig economy, something like Upwork or something like that. Or you can have companies like us that do staffing and does EOR services and these kind of things. So one of the things that a lot of companies are aware of and mindful of is, will they, be treated, if we're treating people as full-time employees, am I liable for this? So this is a good question. I'm going to talk about US and Brazil because they're from both extremes, right? So when we're talking about American legislation, it's very much about willingness to work. So the company gives they set up their policies and their conditions, and a lot is based on that. When they're talking about a country like Brazil, we have a very employee, right, labor legislation. So regardless of what the company agreed with, like directly to this engineer, there are some criteria that if there was a lawsuit, for example, regardless of what went on the first contract, more often than not, the engineer would benefit. So if I'm a US company, it is important to have a really good counsel or a really good partner that can be mindful of this. So a couple of differences right off the bat, right? Let's say maternity leave. That is not standard in the US. In Brazil, that's mandatory, and that's 4 months. So I can, as a US company, just hire this engineer directly and say that I'm not going to provide a maternity leave. I have to, and there's a couple of things like that in terms of PTO, for example, or federal holidays and all these things that if you're hiring outside the US, you are going to have to comply with, or you're going to have to find a partner that's going to help you find common ground in a way that's very beneficial to both the company and the engineer. So your roadmap is not going to get crushed. And also the engineer is going to have really good work conditions. And it is a part of the retention strategy, the way that you're contracting and you're doing the bureaucratic part of it. So that's one thing. In terms of work conditions, Dani, do you want to talk a little bit about, let's bring it in home, and maybe you can say about how this relationship between Ubiminders and the companies they're placed in, like who does the management, who does the performance, who does all these things?
So we work as partners with our customers. We support them through the recruiting process. We'll, handle candidate submissions, the first round of interviews. We'll be, providing feedbacks and facilitating all that process. And once the company and the candidate is ready for that partnership, we take care of the legal stuff, both with our customers and with the Ubiminders. And so we'll take care of contract, we'll take care of equipment, we're going to take care of everything that's needed here locally, and the relationship doesn't end there. So we actually do an ongoing partnership even after they're hired and working in the client. So usually, more day-to-day things are in our customers, with the managers, with that product. So they're part of the same ceremonies. They're getting feedback from their managers, getting the tasks. We're not there as middleman to get tests and pass them along. So they're really embedded in the team, but they're still counting with our support. So if they have any questions with payments, with accounting and legal, all of that we take care of. And we also follow up because, like I said, our goal is really long-term partnership. So we're constantly following up with the Ubiminders and also with our managers to make sure that it's a healthy partnership, it's a healthy relationship, and it's really long-term.
Okay, that's really good in terms of their day-to-day work and activities. Yeah. I have just something to add to this. So, okay, you don't have to be concerned about their performance. They're setting up their sprints, they're directing their day-to-day. But there's other things that we can have a look at as well, and that you should be mindful if you're looking to hire outside the US. So in terms of compliance, for instance, right? There's different engagement models for this engineer with the company. One is a little bit more similar to IC, the other is a little bit more similar to FTE. You do have to be mindful about local legislations in terms of data, if you're sending it abroad or not. Intellectual property, data security, all these things. And specific to the hiring, there are other things that also differentiate. So for example, in the US, it's very usual to have a background check where you'll have criminal records, drug screening, these kind of things. Whereas in Latin American countries, this can be seen as discriminatory, right? So I might not have questions on, I don't know, I can only check for financial, credit scores, all these things if I'm working in fintech. If I'm working with something else, I cannot, it's illegal. These kind of things. So you do really need a partner that knows this legislation and they can support you in navigating this, because otherwise you might find that it doesn't matter how good the engineer is, you might have some, minor legal impediments into you, bringing this person into your team. For sure. In terms of data security, one thing that's interesting for people to know, some countries are a little bit more similar. So for example, Brazil has LGPD, which is a legislation, data security and data privacy legislation, which is very similar to the EU's GDPR. So, be very mindful of who you're hiring as a service provider or as an independent contractor, just to make sure that they're going to be able to comply with that. And that goes with logical security and hardware, like Dani was saying. Sometimes, I see a lot of companies that want to ship equipment from the US or from Canada to Latin America, and they completely forgot about the taxes when they're talking about importing equipment, right, Dani?
Yep.
It takes longer.
That might be a big chunk of money. So it's good to have a partner that is going to be advising you on that and maybe taking care of that too.
Okay. Any other questions? I know people are very quiet, so I'm gonna take it not. You don't have any, but feel free. Okay, so let me just recap really quickly from what we've seen today, right? Hiring in LatAm, shouldn't be too different in terms of the vetting process and so on. We should just be mindful of, language barriers and these kind of things. But it's important to understand that the talent that you're looking for, they're being disputed, and they're being, there's a lot of companies from other countries as well looking into, trying to reach out to them. So it's a lot about motivation, right, Dani? A lot about motivation, the challenges that they're going to face, how much they're going to be welcome, and how much they're going to grow with this opportunity. And yeah, I think this is the basics, right?
Yeah, and be sure that you're telling them about your product, that you're excited about it, and you're providing them with a great experience. I'm sure that, you know, those are two main things that are really going to bring awesome people to join your team.
That is awesome. We keep on finding it's not just about the money, right? You can offer really good compensation, but at this level, they're already picking where they're working for, who they're working for, who their peer groups are going to be. If you have strong leaders on your team, promote that. Make sure that, you know, when you're speaking to a candidate, they get to know just how good the team is and how they should be
Yeah.
proud to join this cohort. So yeah, so if you want to continue this conversation, right? People that are watching us who want to hire in LatAm, just write to us at Ubiminds at Ubiminds. Check out our website. We're more than happy to cover, you know, how countries, what kind of the hiring models are, all those more bureaucratic and specific contests. And again, everybody, looking really forward to catching up over the next 2 weeks. Just follow us on our social, and we're happy to bring in more info every week.
Thank you,
Okay.
everyone watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye.